All right, so here it goes. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but my life took such a turn that I need to get it all out. If you've ever been betrayed by the people closest to you, you know that gut-wrenching feeling, the kind that makes you question everything. That's where I am right now. I'm Bobby, 34, and I thought I had a good life. I had a decent marriage, at least. That's what I believed. My wife, Sonia, 32, was someone I genuinely thought I could trust. And my family? Sure, we had our ups and downs, but I never imagined they would betray me in a way that would shatter everything I knew. It all started when I came home early from a business trip. I was supposed to be away for another 3 days, but I wrapped things up sooner and figured I'd surprise my wife. You know, be the good husband, bring her some takeout from her favorite spot, and spend some time together. As I pulled into my driveway, I noticed my dad's car parked outside. That wasn't too unusual. My father, Robert Sr., was the kind of man who would drop by unannounced, always claiming to be checking in on things while I was away. I figured maybe he stopped by to help Sonia with something around the house. No big deal. I walked in, setting the food down on the kitchen counter, and that's when I heard it. Laughter, whispering, then a muffled moan. I froze. Something in my gut told me something was off. My mind tried to make excuses. Maybe the TV was on. Maybe Sonia was watching something. But the sound? That was too real. Too intimate. I took a step toward the bedroom, and then I saw it. My brother David's jacket. That's when the alarm bells went off in my head. What the hell was my dad doing here with my brother? And why were there noises coming from my bedroom? My stomach twisted as I walked down the hall, my heartbeat thudding in my ears. I reached the door, and for a moment, I hesitated. I almost didn't want to know, but something inside me pushed forward. I turned the doorknob slowly and pushed the door open, and there they were. Sonia, my father, my brother, together, in my bed. Sonia's eyes went wide the moment she saw me. She scrambled to cover herself with the sheet, but it was too late. My father just sat there, frozen like a deer in headlights, while David, the idiot, had the nerve to smirk. "Bobby, wait, I can explain," Sonia started, her voice shaking. I didn't say a word. My hands were shaking, but my mind was sharp. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and started snapping pictures. 7 clear shots. David finally realized what was happening and lunged at me, trying to grab my phone. Big mistake. David barely made it 2 steps before I reacted. The rage inside me boiled over so fast, I didn't even think. My fist connected with his jaw, and the smirk vanished. He stumbled back, holding his face, but he wasn't done. He came at me again, hands reaching for my phone, but I wasn't about to let this piece of trash take away my proof. I took a step back, pulled out my pocket knife, and pointed it right at him. "Try it," I said, my voice low and steady. "Go ahead, David. Give me a reason." He froze. I could see the hesitation in his eyes. He had always been the hothead growing up, but he knew me. He knew when I was serious. And right now, I wasn't bluffing. Sonia started crying, clutching the sheet like it was some kind of shield. "Bobby, please. It's not what it looks like." I laughed. I actually laughed. "Not what it looks like." I repeated. "So what? You tripped and fell on both of them." My father. Oh, this man had the audacity to sit there like some guilty kid caught stealing candy. He wasn't even trying to defend himself. Just staring at me, mouth slightly open, like he didn't even know how to process what was happening. David, though, he tried to recover. "Look, man, I know this is messed up, but you don't understand." I lunged at him again, and this time, he fell back against the nightstand, knocking over a lamp. "I don't understand. I don't understand." I shouted. "You're my brother, David. And you." I turned to my father, my hands shaking with anger. "You're supposed to be my father." Sonia was still sobbing. "Bobby, I made a mistake. I was lonely. I whipped around to face her. "Shut up." She flinched. Good. I could feel my breath coming fast, my heart hammering in my chest. My mind was racing. There were so many things I wanted to say, to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I held up my phone, waving it in front of their faces. "You 3 just destroyed your lives. I said coldly. And I'm going to make sure you pay for it. David shifted, clearly trying to figure out his next move. But I wasn't done. I turned and walked right out of the bedroom. You better stay in there, I warned, because if I see any of you before I leave this house, I might actually lose control. And for once, they listened. I walked out of that room and straight to the living room, my hands still shaking with adrenaline. My whole body felt like it was on fire. I needed to get out, needed to think. But first, I needed to secure my revenge. I pulled out my laptop and sat at the kitchen table. Every bank account Sonia and I shared, I had access. And guess what? She never bothered learning how to handle finances. She left everything to me. Her mistake. With a few clicks, I emptied out our joint savings account. $118,000. Gone. Then I logged into the business account. My father and I had been running the family business together for years. I had access to that, too. He always trusted me to handle the books. Another $155,000. Transferred. That money was mine now. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling a strange sense of calm. They had taken everything from me. My trust, my family, my marriage. But I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I grabbed my phone, pulled up my contacts, and sent a message to my mom. Me, you need to come to my house. Now. It's about Dad. She replied almost instantly. Mom, what's wrong? Me, just come. Trust me. I stood up, grabbed a duffel bag, and started stuffing it with clothes. I wasn't staying here. This house. This life. It was over. 15 minutes later, I heard the doorbell. It was time for round 2. I opened the door, and there stood my mother, looking worried. She had always been the strong, no-nonsense type, but I could see the concern in her eyes. What's going on, Bobby? She asked, stepping inside. Is your father here? I didn't answer. I just pulled out my phone, opened a photo gallery, and handed it to her. At first, she didn't understand what she was looking at. Then her face twisted in horror. No, this isn't real, she whispered, her voice shaking. She flipped through the photos, her hands trembling. Oh, it's real, I said, my voice cold. I walked in on them. Dad, Sonia, and David. She gasped like she had been punched in the gut. Her free hand flew up to cover her mouth. No, oh my God. That disgusting lying. She didn't even finish the sentence. She just stood there, staring at the pictures, her body shaking. Tears welled up in her eyes, but they didn't fall. My mother wasn't a woman who cried easily. No, when she was hurt, she got angry. And I had just given her a reason to be furious. Where is he? She demanded, her voice like ice. In my bedroom, I said. Without another word, she marched past me, down the hall, and kicked the door open so hard it slammed against the wall. You son of a... She started, but cut herself off, her whole body shaking with rage. My father jumped up, scrambling to put on his pants. Karen, please, let me explain. She threw my phone at him. It hit his chest and clattered to the floor. Explain. What is there to explain, Robert? You're a filthy, disgusting pig. You had an affair with your son's wife. And with David. What kind of sick, twisted? Sonia was still clutching the sheet, sobbing. David was standing in the corner, looking down at the floor like a guilty child. Mom, He started, but she rounded on him so fast he flinched. Don't you dare. Her voice was deadly quiet, which was somehow scarier than if she had been screaming. You are not my son anymore. David's face crumpled. Mom, please, I said don't, she snapped. Then she turned back to my father. I want you out of my house by tonight. We are done, Robert. Dad paled. Karen, please, we can talk. She actually laughed, a cold, bitter sound. Talk? Oh, you want to talk now? Too bad. You should have thought about that before you climbed into bed with our son's wife. I just stood there, watching it all unfold. This was exactly what I wanted. This wasn't just about me anymore. My father had betrayed my mother, too. And now, he was losing everything. My father stood there, speechless. But I didn't care about him anymore. I turned to David, who was still standing in the corner like a coward. Hope it was worth it, little bro, I said, my voice dripping with venom. David looked up at me, his eyes red. Bobby, Shut up, I snapped. You don't get to talk. Not after this. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Cindy, David's wife. She was about to get a wake-up call. Who are you calling? David asked, panic creeping into his voice. I held up the screen. Your wife. David's face turned white. Bobby, please don't. Too late. The phone was already ringing. After 2 rings, she picked up. Hey, Bobby. What's up? Cindy said cheerfully. I didn't waste time. Cindy, I need you to listen carefully. David's been cheating on you. Dead silence. Then a nervous laugh. What? That's not funny. I'm not joking, I said, my voice deadly calm. I just walked in on him. In my bedroom. With Sonia. More silence. Then, you're lying. I wish I was. I took a deep breath. Check your phone. I'm sending proof. I sent her all 7 pictures. A few seconds passed. Then I heard it, the sharp intake of breath. The way her voice cracked when she whispered, "Oh my God." I could hear her start to cry. David took a step forward. Cindy, baby, let me expla. I put the call on speaker. Don't you dare call me that, you disgusting piece of trash. Cindy screamed. How could you do this to me? To Bobby. David tried to grab the phone, but I shoved him back. Hope you've got a place to stay, because something tells me Cindy isn't going to let you back in. Get out of my house, David. We're done. Cindy sobbed through the phone. I never want to see your face again. Then she hung up. David just stood there, staring at the floor, breathing hard. He looked completely broken. Good. I grabbed my duffel bag and slung it over my shoulder. I'm done with this family, I said, looking between my father and my brother. You too. You deserve each other. Then I walked out of the house, leaving them to deal with the mess they created. But I wasn't finished yet. I walked out of the house, the weight of betrayal still sitting heavy in my chest, but I wasn't done yet. I got into my car, gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My heart was still hammering, but my mind was clearer than ever. Next stop, the bank. I drove straight there, walked in like I owned the place, and met with the teller. I had no time for small talk. I pulled out my ID and slid it across the counter. I need to make some withdrawals, I said. I started with the joint account Sonia and I shared. Withdraw everything, I told the teller. She hesitated. Everything? Yes, all of it. A few clicks on the keyboard later, and $118,000 was in my hands. Next, I moved to the business account. My father's name was on it, but I had full access. The way I saw it, my share of that money was earned. Another $155,000. I had over $273,000 in cash by the time I walked out. The entire drive back to my house, my phone kept blowing up. Sonia, Bobby, please, let's talk. David, dude, you don't have to do this. Dad, son, be reasonable. I turned off my phone. I didn't give a damn what they had to say. When I pulled into the driveway, Sonia was already outside, pacing like a lunatic. Her makeup was smudged from all the crying, but I had no sympathy. The moment I stepped out, she ran up to me. Bobby, please. I know I made a mistake, but we can fix this. We can go to therapy, we can. I walked right past her. She grabbed my arm, desperate. Don't do this. I turned, my eyes cold. You didn't care about our marriage when you climbed into bed with my father and brother. Why should I care now? She let go, her face crumpling. I wasn't thinking. No, you were thinking just fine. I snapped. You just didn't think you'd get caught. I walked into the house, grabbed my bag of cash, my duffel bag, and my keys. As I walked back out, Sonia was still standing there, looking absolutely destroyed. I could see her gears turning, trying to figure out some way to manipulate me into staying. So I gave her one last gift. You might want to check our bank accounts, I said, smirking. Oh, wait, you can't. Her face went pale. You didn't. Oh, but I did. I leaned in, lowering my voice. I took everything. You and David. You're broke now. Have fun figuring that out. I turned and walked to my car, feeling lighter than I had in years. As I pulled out of the driveway, I took one last look in the rearview mirror. Sonia was standing there, completely shattered. Good. I didn't know exactly where I was going. But I knew one thing. I was never coming back. I drove. I didn't know where I was going, and I didn't care. All I knew was that I needed to get as far away from that house, from them, as possible. My phone stayed off. No distractions, no second thoughts. Somewhere down the highway, I pulled over at a gas station, took a deep breath, and looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes were bloodshot, my face tight with exhaustion. But you know what? For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel trapped. I got out, filled up the tank, and walked inside to grab a coffee. As I stood in line, I noticed a young couple in front of me, laughing, holding hands, lost in their own little world. It hit me then. That used to be me and Sonia. Before I realized she was a liar. Before I knew she was capable of something this disgusting. The anger bubbled up again, but I pushed it down. No more thinking about her. No more thinking about my father, or David. They were nothing to me now. As I sipped my coffee, I pulled out my wallet and looked at my credit cards. Bad idea. Every single one was linked to my old life. Time to start fresh. I walked over to the ATM and withdrew a few thousand in cash. Then, without hesitation, I took out every card linked to those accounts, grabbed a pair of scissors from the counter, and started cutting. Each card snapped under the blades, little pieces of my old life, falling into the trash. I had $273,000 in cash, a car full of gas, and no one to answer to. I was free. I got back into the car and kept driving. I wasn't going back to my old town, my old job, or my old life. No more Bobby the family man, or Bobby the responsible son. That Bobby was dead. Now, I was about to start a new life, one that didn't include liars, cheaters, or traitors. And it felt damn good. I had been on the road for hours, the highway stretching endlessly ahead of me. I didn't have a destination, just a need to keep moving. At some point, I pulled into a cheap motel. Paid in cash. No paper trail. I wasn't ready for anyone to find me yet. After locking the door behind me, I finally turned my phone back on. Missed calls, 27. New messages, 41. I didn't even have to check to know who they were from. Sonia, David, Dad, all of them trying to reach me. But one name stood out. Mom. I hesitated, then tapped on her message. Mom, I kicked your father out. He's staying at some cheap motel. I don't care where. I don't care what happens to him. Mom, I'm sorry, Bobby. I should have seen what kind of man he was years ago. Mom, I need to ask you something. Can you come back? We need to talk. I stared at the screen. Go back. For what? She must have seen the message was read, because another one popped up almost immediately. Mom, I'm taking over the business. Mom, and I want you to run it with me. That made me pause. My father had been the one in charge for years. I had done the work, managed the accounts, built the relationships, but he had taken the credit. Now that he was out, Mom was stepping up, and she wanted me to help. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen. A part of me wanted to tell her no, to tell her I was done with this family, that I wanted nothing to do with anything that reminded me of them. But another part of me, that part wanted to go back. Not for David, not for Dad, definitely not for Sonia, but for Mom. I sighed, rubbing my temples. After everything that had happened, was I really ready to face them again? I sat there in that cheap motel room, staring at my mom's message, my mind spinning. Did I really want to go back? On one hand, I had finally broken free. I had the money. I had the chance to start over. No ties, no drama, no betrayal lurking around every corner. But on the other hand, this wasn't just about me anymore. My mom had been blindsided by this, just like I had. She didn't deserve this any more than I did. And now, she was stepping up to take over the family business? That was huge. But I wasn't about to just walk back and like nothing had happened. If I was going back, it would be on my terms. So I called her. She picked up after one ring. Bobby. I exhaled. Yeah, it's me. Oh, thank God. I could hear the relief in her voice. Are you okay? Where are you? I'm fine, I said, ignoring the second question. But before I even think about coming back, I need to know something. Anything, she said quickly. I leaned forward, gripping the phone. Is David still involved in the business? Silence. That told me everything. Mom, I said, my voice firm. If you want me to come back, David has to be out. Completely. She sighed. Bobby, No, I cut her off. This isn't up for debate. That backstabbing piece of trash isn't my brother anymore. If he has any involvement, I'm out. Another silence. Then, finally, she spoke. Consider him gone. I let out a slow breath. You mean that? Yes, she said, her voice hard. I already told him to get out of my house. If he thinks he's getting a penny from me after what he did, he's delusional. Good. I nodded to myself. All right, I said. I'll come back. Not to fix things. Not to forgive anyone. But to take what's mine. The next morning, I packed up my things, checked out of the motel, and hit the road. I wasn't excited. I wasn't nervous. I was just ready. I had spent years working for that family business, putting in the effort while my father took all the credit and David coasted through life like the spoiled brat he was. But now Mom was in charge, and she wanted me to help run things. That meant one thing: I won. I pulled up to my mom's house a few hours later. Before I even knocked, the door flew open, and there she was. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. But the moment she saw me, her face softened. Bobby. She pulled me into a hug before I could react. I let it happen for a few seconds, then stepped back. Where is he? I asked. She knew exactly who I meant. David. Her mouth tightened. Gone. I told him he's not getting a dime from this family. He threw a tantrum, called me every name in the book, then stormed off. Cindy is divorcing him. He has nothing. Good. And my father? Mom's jaw clenched. Staying at some motel. I don't care where. Also good. I stepped inside, my eyes scanning the house. It felt different. I had grown up here, but now it just felt like a crime scene. We sat down at the kitchen table. Mom poured herself a cup of coffee, her hands shaking slightly. She took a breath. So, you're really going to stay? Help me with the business? I nodded. Yeah, but I'm not here to play nice. I want full control of the finances. Every penny goes through me. She didn't even hesitate. Done. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling. I had walked away from everything, only to come back and take everything. David was gone. My father was ruined. Sonia. Well, she was next. Taking down my father and brother felt satisfying, but there was still one loose end. Sonia. That woman had betrayed me in the worst way possible, and while I had already taken all our money, I wasn't done with her yet. So I decided to destroy what little she had left. I opened my phone, scrolled to my contacts, and found the person I needed to call: her boss. Now, I wasn't some bitter ex trying to get her fired out of spite. No. Sonia worked in high-end real estate, a job that required trust, reputation, and professionalism. And guess what? I had 7 pictures proving she was anything but professional. I hit dial. After a couple of rings, a deep voice answered. This is Mark. Hey, Mark, I said casually. This is Bobby. Sonia's husband. Well, ex-husband, I guess. A pause. Oh, Bobby. What can I do for you? I smiled. I just thought you should know what kind of person you have working for you. You see, Sonia's been conducting some inappropriate business outside of work, and I have the proof. Another pause. What are you talking about? I pulled up the photos on my phone. I'm texting you some pictures now. You tell me if you trust someone like her handling million-dollar clients. I hit send. Silence. Then a sharp breath. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I said, my voice cold. Not exactly the image you want your company associated with, huh? Mark let out a long sigh. Bobby, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. This is bad. I figured, I said. Just thought you should know. I hung up. 5 minutes later, Sonia called me. I picked up, putting her on speaker just so I could enjoy it. What did you do? She screeched. I smirked. Just made sure the world knows who you really are. She was full-on sobbing now. Bobby, please. That job was all I had left. I shrugged. Maybe you should have thought about that before you climbed into bed with my father and brother. She gasped between cries. You're ruining my life. No, Sonia, I said, my voice calm. You ruined your life. I'm just making sure you feel it. Then I hung up. David. Broke. Dead. Disgraced. Sonia. Unemployed. I wasn't just walking away from my old life. I was burning it to the ground. Sonia kept blowing up my phone, but I ignored her. I knew exactly what was happening. Her entire world was collapsing. No husband. No money. No job. And now, she had nowhere to go. See, the house we lived in? It was in my name. Sonia had never bothered with paperwork. She let me handle everything. And now, that was about to bite her in the ass. I drove straight to my lawyer's office. I had one last move to make. Bobby. Mr. Reynolds greeted me as I walked in. I wasn't expecting you today. I sat down. I need to evict my wife. He raised an eyebrow. You two are still legally married, correct? Yeah, I said. But the house is in my name. She has no legal claim to it. Reynolds leaned back, nodding. You're right. You'll need to give her a formal eviction notice. Legally, she has 30 days to vacate, but given the circumstances, you might be able to push her out sooner. I smirked. Do it. He drafted the paperwork, and within an hour, I was driving back to the house with the official eviction notice in hand. When I pulled into the driveway, Sonia was already outside. She looked awful, mascara running down her face, hair a mess, eyes red from crying. The moment she saw me step out of the car, she ran toward me. Bobby, please. You have to stop this. I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking. We can fix this. I didn't say a word. I just pulled out the eviction notice, unfolded it, and held it up in front of her face. Her eyes flicked to the paper, and her face twisted in confusion. What is this? It's your move-out notice. I shoved it into her trembling hands. You have 30 days to get your crap out of my house. Sonia shook her head wildly. No, you can't do this. This is our home. No, Sonia, I said, voice cold. It's my home. You were just a guest. She grabbed my arm, desperate. Where am I supposed to go? I shrugged. Not my problem. She collapsed onto the porch, sobbing uncontrollably. Please, Bobby. I have nothing left. I stared down at her. Good. Now you know what betrayal feels like, I said quietly. Then, without another word, I walked past her, into my house, and slammed the door. Sonia was out, and I was finally free. For the next few days, Sonia refused to accept reality. She tried everything, crying, begging, even trying to seduce me, as if that would work after what she did. But I wasn't falling for any of it. Then, when manipulation didn't work, she turned to threats. It started with texts. Sonia, if you kick me out, I'll tell everyone you abused me. Sonia, people will believe me, Bobby. Do you really want that? I laughed out loud when I read that one. She was truly desperate now. Then, the next day, she showed up at the business. I was in my new office, going over financials with my mom, when my assistant knocked on the door. Sir, she said hesitantly, your wife is here. She's making a scene. I sighed and stood up. Of course she is. When I walked into the lobby, there she was. Hair disheveled, makeup running, looking completely unhinged. Bobby, she wailed, throwing herself toward me. Please, just talk to me. I took a step back. This is my place of business, Sonia. You do not belong here. She clutched my arm like a lifeline. I love you. I made a mistake, but we can fix it. I pried her fingers off me. Love? That's funny, coming from someone who slept with my father and brother. She flinched like I had slapped her. I wasn't in my right mind. I was lonely, I was. I raised a hand, cutting her off. No more excuses. You are nothing to me. Sonia. Get out. Tears streamed down her face, but I wasn't buying it. Then, she did something I didn't expect. She dropped to her knees. I have nowhere to go, she sobbed. I lost my job. I lost my husband. I lost my friends. Please, Bobby. I have nothing. I stared at her. And then, I smiled. You're right, I said softly. You have nothing, and that's exactly what you deserve. Her sobs turned into wails, but I just turned around, walked back to my office, and shut the door behind me. I was done with Sonia, and she knew it.